Hey there, my name is Vytaan and I'm here to bring you my guide on Syndra. Feel free to use the annotations at the start of this video to skip the sections you might need. I hope this guide will be helpful to you, and in any case, enjoy my accent. Syndra has been my main champion since about the start of Pre-Season 3. It took me a while before I picked her up, but when I discovered her pretty much unlimited potential, she instantly became my favorite. And this led to having played almost 200 ranked games with her. Syndra is a bursty AP champion who is most often seen in the middle lane, but she can also occasionally perform quite well as a support, thanks to her utility. What is pretty unique about her is that she can use all her abilities while moving.
Immense power is fun. You should try it sometime.
And this may take some time getting used to, but it allows you to chase and run away very effectively. Syndra's win rate is quite low, and maybe even one of the lowest, but don't let this fool you, because once you master her, you'll find her devastating. Syndra's passive is called Transcendent. Whenever an ability reaches maximum level, it will gain a bonus effect. Her Q deals extra damage to champions, her W gets an increased slow duration, her E gets a bigger cone width, and her ultimate gets an increased range. Her abilities also gain slightly different visuals. Keep this passive in mind when deciding which ability you want to max out first. Syndra's Q is Dark Sphere. She will summon a sphere at the selected location after a small delay, which is about half a second, pretty much like Karthus' Q. This deals AoE magic damage and has a very low cooldown. Most importantly, it can be manipulated by her other abilities, for a maximum of 6 seconds. Syndra's W is Force of Will. It allows her to pick up a sphere or an enemy or neutral minion, except for Baron and Dragon. She can then throw it to her target location, dealing magic damage and slowing every enemy hit. It also grants vision of the target area, and when a sphere is grabbed, the duration is refreshed. The target will be dragged alongside you for a maximum of 5 seconds. If you don't throw it during this time, the target will automatically be released. Because of the fact that you can pick up both blue and red buff, you can disturb the enemy jungler by resetting them, possibly even stealing them away. Just make sure you have vision, so you can easily pick it up from over the wall. Syndra's E is Scatter the Weak. It knocks back all enemies and dark spheres in a cone. Enemies hit by these spheres will be stunned for 1.5 seconds. The range a sphere can travel is quite long, making it a great tool to catch someone who's out of position. However, it's also your only method of disengage, and since the cooldown is quite high at early ranks, you have to use it wisely. Both the skill and the knockback spheres can reach over walls, allow you to cut someone off when a teammate is chasing an enemy, for example. As you can see, enemies who are hit get revealed as well. Syndra's ultimate is Unleashed Power. Syndra nukes the target by throwing all of her spheres. Each sphere does a separate amount of damage. She will always throw at least the 3 spheres that are surrounding her character model. However, all of the spheres currently on the field will be thrown as well. This means that with maximum cooldown reduction, and by using the refresh on your W, you will be able to throw a maximum of 7 spheres. To get the most out of your ultimate, you'll want to manage both your sphere placement and your mana pool. This way you can set up your ultimate in advance, but without running out of mana. As with most champions, don't pick a skill before minions have spawned yet. This is so you can still get your W at level 1 during an invade to secure a buff. Or if you get ganked, then you can still get your E to knock the enemy team away and possibly save your life. However, in any other case, I just start with my Q so I can use it to poke or last hit, and during level 1 teamfights it provides the most damage as well, since the cooldown is really low and it's AoE. I get my E at level 2, because it provides some really good protection against jungler ganks. If you see someone coming, you can just use your Q and then knock them back with your E. And this works on pretty much anyone except for Maokai, because he becomes untargetable, and that's really annoying. I max my Q first for the bonus damage from your passive, and I kept my W at level 4 and maxed it second for the increased slow duration and the decreased cooldown. E is kind of a 1-point wonder, so I just maxed it last. And I kept my ultimate whenever possible. For my runes I usually go really aggressive, taking magic pen marks, flat mana regen seals, ability power per level glyphs and flat ability power quint. Against harder lanes I usually trade in my glyphs for flat magic resist. And if you're laning against an AD caster such as Zed or Kha'Zix, you might want to go for flat armor seals. I really like the flat mana regen though, because it allows you to spam your Q way more often. My masteries are pretty standard, going for 2109. I take the flat attack damage for easier and less hitting, and you can choose between either the increased buff duration or the biscuit. I start the game off with a fairy charm, a ward, 4 or 5 health potions and 1 or 2 mana potions. My core item build consists of Athene's Unholy Grail, Deathfire Grasp and Boots. This build gives you at least 30% cooldown reduction, allowing you to set up your ultimate both quicker and with more spheres. Also, the Deathfire active combined with your ultimate provides insane burst. Athene's is what you'll want to rush first, starting with building your fairy charm into a Chalice of Harmony on your first trip back to base. It will almost completely remove your mana problems and it lets you farm waves with ease. Another possibility for your mana problems would be a Tear of the Goddess, but I'm not really a big fan of this item. It doesn't let you capitalize on your mid game power and it doesn't provide cooldown reduction. After my core, I usually go for a Void Staff or an Hourglass, depending on if I feel safe or not. And the final 2 items usually consist of a Death Cap and the item I didn't get earlier, so either the Hourglass or the Void Staff. Of course you have to adjust to the game. If you're having trouble against an AD mid, rushing an Arm Guard might help. Or if you're being bursted down by magic damage, both Athene's and Abyssal Scepter combined will provide you with 85 magic resistance.
Eyes open.
Syndra has a fairly good laning phase where she can poke her enemy with her Q or with an E-Q-W combo. Her Q doesn't cost a lot of mana, so you can safely use it to farm minions, in case you can't get everything with your auto attacks. When your Q is level 4, a W to Q combo should be enough to kill the caster minions instantly. Just keep in mind that it will push your lane, and since you have no escape ability, you're very vulnerable to ganks. So make sure you keep your lane watered, especially against aggressive junglers, or you will not be able to poke or farm safely. You'll have to keep in mind that you can keep moving while casting skills, which means you'll have an easier time dodging your enemy skill shots. And this is pretty much the hardest part about Syndra. You have to manage both your movement and your skill placement at the same time in order to succeed. For example, in the following video I stun Ahri and poke her with my W and Q. However, right as I cast both abilities, I start moving back to my tower immediately. This allows me to just move out of the range of Ahri's orb. Once you get your ultimate, you want to set up a kill, as you have the highest burst of any champion depending on your spheres. In this clip, Ahri thinks she has the advantage. However, thanks to some earlier poking, I already had 2 spheres on the battlefield. I managed to get a 6th sphere in right when I cast my ultimate, dealing huge damage. Syndra's specialty is catching someone out of position and bursting them down. In the following clip, Ahri has flat magic resist glyphs and even an Abyssal Scepter, but she still gets destroyed by a full combo. This can really help you win games, especially in solo queue. Even without your ultimate, you'll be able to provide a lot of consistent AoE damage, as your Q and W have a really low cooldown.
Blue team double kill. Blue team triple kill. Shut down.
Another interesting fact is that throwing the lizard buff applies the lizard debuff on every one hit. Also, throwing the Asian Golem replenishes 10 mana and it reduces the cooldown on your Force of Will by 1 second. With enough cooldown reduction, you can even drag a monster to any place of the map you want. Just throw it at the last second, stun it with your QE combo and pick it up again. Trust me, your enemies will basically be stunned when they see a flying golem through their base.
Executed. Your team has destroyed a turret.
Counters to Syndra are any champions who can stick on a target or dodge your E. A well-played Fizz or Kassadin can be hard to deal with, for example, though it's not impossible. In most cases you can poke them down during the early levels, where you still have the advantage of your range, but you still have to be careful that they don't burst you down later on, as knocking them back doesn't really have such a great effect. Also, enemies who have good eye for your sphere placement will be a lot harder to deal with, as they most likely won't be in the right angle for you to stun them with your E. Thank you so much for watching my first video guide ever. If you have any suggestions or comments, leave them in the comment section below. If you liked it, please give me a thumbs up and subscribe if you want to see more of this in the future.